Oh.
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 Hey. Hello.
Oh.
Knock,
You?
knock.
Are we live?
We are live.
Are we live? Oh, we're live. Hello. Hello, internet. I was looking for the internet. There you are. Oh, welcome. Come on in. Come. No, you want to stay there? Okay. You know what? Stay over there. That's cool. Welcome. We're here. We're here to talk. We're here to chat.
We're here to chat.
We got some cool kids on the line.
Beards everywhere.
Yeah, there's beards everywhere. Have you ever done a full beard, Mike?
I have the sides are too patchy. It really doesn't look good.
Oh, okay.
This is as much as I can do.
I mean, that's a solid goatee though. That's a good one.
That's
I like
the
it.
same reason I shaved my head, so I fully understand.
Well, welcome. Let me bring up the chat. Make sure I can see it. Oh, there we are. Oh, you know what? I need to mute my laptop. Great.
Are you watching us live right now, Adam?
There we go. I'm watching us live. Cool.
Hey, quick food chat, real quick.
Food chat.
Diving right in. So I want to ask you guys. So I took Diana to the airport yesterday, and then on the way we picked up some McDonald's, right? And so I heard her in the car. Once we got the food, I heard her go, I was like, wait, what's going on? Did you bite your teeth? Did you bite your lip? I was like, no. I was like, I haven't had McDonald's fries in so long, and we're talking like maybe about 4 or 5 years of McDonald's fries. Like, do you guys have like a favorite fast food fries that you guys like really enjoy?
Brad, I think you probably have a good ranking.
McDonald's are definitely right up there. They topped the charts, obviously, for years, for many reasons. But personally, I was fine with the In-N-Out messy fries, or animal-style fries, as they call them. I would probably eat those over McDonald's, but for me, personally, Chick-fil-A waffle fries are the GOAT.
Oh, yeah, waffle fries. Those are pretty good.
Yeah.
The Chick-fil-A waffle fries specifically.
I think the waffle fries are pretty solid, but for me, it's got to be the Wingstop fries. They've got various flavorings.
Man, I don't know if I've had Wingstop fries.
I've never had a Wingstop fries. It's always just wings for me.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just covered in salt and tons of seasoning. That's all there is to it.
Huh.
That's the same reason I love Five Guys as well. Let's get Five Guys in the conversation.
Okay. All these fries sound really good except for McDonald's. I rank McDonald's fries as like lowest of the low personally of all the fast food chains. That's just me.
Have you eaten fries from Burger King?
Fries at a Burger King. Well, it depends on the Burger King, because I don't know about where you live, but here in Oakland, it varies. It varies where you go. The place that's close to me is like,
quite inconsistent. I know. Yeah.
Very inconsistent. I feel like when Burger King fries are good, that they're like the top of the major chains. We're talking about Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King, like major chains. Of the sub chains, man, now I got to try Wingstop.
I know.
But
there's one sort of in between where we live.
Yeah. No, I should try that.
Wait,
waffle fries.
What's your top rank again?
For the big chains, I put Burger King.
Okay.
So
oh God,
when it's good, when it's good.
I don't think I've ever been to Burger King and be like, man, these are good fries. And I notice it because I really like the Whopper burgers, but the fries are always a low point.
Interesting.
Oh, we got people in the chat.
Here's the.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, we got people in the chat say Arby's fries, Wendy's fries.
Oh yeah, Arby's are good.
Wendy's is pretty good for fries.
So I have a funny story. My very first job was a Wendy's, and I was put on the fry machine. As you do when you start. I think I was like 15, fresh face, and I was just like, "Ooh, I got my first job." That's and so I was on the fry station. My goal was to just fry up what I needed to, bag up what I needed to, and provide it right. So I think it was like the second shift or maybe the third shift. It was an order for the chicken strips, and I put the chicken strips in the basket, but I accidentally I think I kind of I don't know. I don't remember how I did it, but I dropped one of the chicken strips in the main part of the fryer, and I was like, "Oh, no big deal. I'll just pick it up." I dipped my hand in the oil to get it out, and I was like, "Huh. That don't feel right."
Oh no!
And the manager, really nice lady, she was hilarious. Luckily we had just put in brand new oil, and it was like early in the day, so like the oil wasn't the hottest that it's going to be. But yeah, I averted disaster real bad. I was idiot.
Yeah.
Oh man. But curly fries, yeah, Arby's curly fries. Okay, now that I think about that, dang, that's probably number one of the major chains for me. I always forget about Arby's because I don't really go there anymore. But
I'll allow the change because, man, Burger King top fries is. Here's a fat man pro tip. I hate Burger King fries, but as a fat man, I like fries. So what I do when I go to Burger King is I get the Whopper because that's my favorite burger of any of the major fast food brands. But I just get the standalone Whopper, and then instead of ordering fries, I just order a side of chicken fries with it. Just, stab a dagger straight into my arteries and have a delightful time.
There you go.
Yeah, man, Whopper and chicken fries. That is a big lunch for anybody.
Yeah, my wife likes putting the fries on the burger. That's her tip. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of that. But anyway, we have a $2 super chat from who's it? Bobby0081. Thank you for the $2.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. He said, "Where's Gordon?" Unfortunately, Gordon couldn't come to the show again, so I'm filling in for his chair. I'm keeping his chair really warm so that hopefully when he comes back, he's going to be like, "Oh my God, why is this chair so warm?" And I'm going to be like, "You don't want to know. You don't want to know." So.
Immediately start slandering McDonald's.
I know he's gonna be like, "What'd you say about McDonald's?" So, yes, and we got people in the chat already hungry. I think we should just start.
Yeah.
We've got fun stuff to talk about. I think we should just get into it. So
let's talk about some chips.
Yeah, let's talk about some chips.
All right. Go ahead, Adam, whenever you're ready.
Dang it. Okay, I forgot something, but whatever. We'll talk about it later. You know what? I actually scripted this out like Gordon would do, but I didn't put that last part. Okay. Here we go. In this episode of The Full Nerd, DLSS gets more smarter, Intel provides some interesting updates, and Razer throws their hat into the custom keyboard ring.
DLSS.
Welcome to episode I didn't look at the number 268 of The Full Nerd. I am your fill-in host for this episode, Adam Patrick Murray. I have two fine gentlemen on the line here. The first one I'm going to refer to is Brad Charkis.
Hello, Internet.
The second one I'm going to refer to is Michael Kreider, back after it's been a couple months.
Howdy.
And your title, real quick, remind me, is just staff writer?
I am a lowly staff writer.
Lowly staff writer. No, you're the highest of the staff writers in my heart. That's not true. You're all equal. And then controlling the vertical and horizontal is Willis Lai.
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. We were talking about fries earlier in the pre-show, and yeah, now I feel like fries. There's not really a place to get fries around here, huh? Not really. There's in downtown San Francisco. There's not too many restaurant chains. Actually, there is this restaurant chain. I was talking with one of my friends who's vegan. Have you heard of McCharlie's?
No.
So look up McCharlie's. There's one in LA and one in San Francisco. I don't know if there's more than that, but it's essentially an all vegan McDonald's ripoff.
Oh,
so yeah. It literally looks like McDonald's inside. Got the red, got the arches and things like that, but it's all vegan. Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, I think that might be the closest place.
We should take Gordon there one of these days.
No, that is a horrible
idea. Take on
it. I don't even think he would step foot in it.
I mean, he'll just order coffee. Yeah, coffee and a hash brown.
Then it'll be like, what is this? Is this coffee vegan as well? It's like, coffee's all right. Well, unless you put creamer in it. Anyway, we're here to talk about the PC. Before we dive into the fun topics that we have, including DLSS 3.5, Intel Arc updates, and PresentMon updates, and Razer showing off a new custom keyboard, which Mike Kreider reviewed. That's why he's joining us. A couple quick updates before we hop in. There has been more information around the whole LTT scenario, and we covered it a lot on the show last week. It was funny. We were looking at the timestamps, and we kind of breezed through the main topics to get to the Q&A, and the first question was about the LTT stuff. Paul has done some great follow-up stuff there. Linus has come out and given some statements, and they're currently on a production pause. So there's more information. We don't need to get into all to it get all into it here. But there's a couple things I want to say. The one of the major updates kind of around this is around an ex-employee named Madison. It's very, very serious allegations that I think hopefully can be looked into and addressed, because that's, of all this stuff, that's definitely the stuff for me personally that doesn't sit right. And hopefully they can address that and figure out what's going on, because that's, for a workplace to have a toxic culture. And I'm not saying that I know anything about the situation, but the allegations are that it has a toxic culture to it, and definitely something that needs to be addressed. The other part is I realized, in the middle of talking about it last week, I was very kumbaya and talking about how we approach things, and I didn't want to come across as, oh, hey, look we got all our stuff figured out. That is hopefully not the vibe that they were putting out. But I wanted to say that, in giving kind of the behind the scenes of how we do things, or offering suggestions and helps to anybody who is struggling with that stuff, please feel free to reach out. It's not that we know how to do this and we're the best at it. It's just, I feel like it's something I wanted to say, just at least to get out there. So,
just another perspective. If you're going around looking for more coverage of this, I just saw Ian Cutress, frequently on the show, formerly of Tech, put out an hour and a half video diving deep into it last night. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I'm curious to see what he has to say. So I just figured full nerd listeners might as well. So I'd just share that.
Yeah, for sure. I think we might be seeing Ian sometime soon. So hopefully we get to chat with him more about that. But yeah, anyway, wanted to touch on that before we get in. And then, I think we just dive in. The topic of Nvidia and DLSS 3.5. 3.5 to me, Brad, signifies that it's a point update, that this isn't a major revision to the way DLSS 3.0 works. Would you consider that true, Brad?
Not necessarily. I think 3.5 signifies that it is a pretty serious update, but not one that they want to say, hey, this is the next generation of DLSS. So, and that's honestly my impression. I haven't not had a chance to actually play with it hands-on myself yet, but from everything I saw in the presentation, talking with the folks at Nvidia, that's kind of my impression of it as well. So
there is one major thing which is kind of the differentiating factor for this 0.5 update, and it's that AI-powered ray reconstruction.
Yes,
correct. And it's slide 23 if you want to show that, Willis. This is a lot of this is over my head. I'm not a developer at all. Brad, hopefully you can help the common person understand what the hell this means.
So basically, when this all DLSS 3.5 and its flagship feature, ray reconstruction, is all focused 100% around making ray trace visuals look better in games. Just to be straight up front, you might see a small performance boost in some games, but that's not the goal. The goal is to make ray tracing look better. So basically, when a game is ray traced, that happens by sending tens, hundreds, thousands of little bits of rays into a scene, getting all those light sample data, doing all its complex GPU things, and figuring out how to present it. But the reason it took ray tracing so long to be usable in games is because doing that task is extremely, intensive. It will melt GPUs if you just have infinite rays of light. The reason that movies look so good is because they can take hours or days to run that process. But games have to respond to in real time. So it's limited to the number of rays it can cast. And because of that, when you get a raw ray trace picture, it can look a little grainy. When ray tracing and DLSS first came out, back, previous examples before that, because there were some ray trace games before that, you could go back and look and see that there's a graininess to the picture. So the way that you counteract that is by running a task called a denoiser. And it basically, checks either temporarily, so over a couple of frames, does this magic, figures out, hey, this is kind of what it's supposed to look in, fills in the blanks where all the rays are missing from. Or you can do it spatially, which is, hey, this is one frame, but these group of pixels here is next to this group of pixels here. Here's kind of what it should look like, and fill in the blanks. As you can tell, anyone
Show
who's
slide
played
11,
ray trace,
actually. Sorry. Or I'm sorry, 21. Slide 21, please.
ray tracing looks pretty good. As anyone who's played ray trace games can tell, sometimes it's not worth the performance impact, but when ray tracing kicks butt, it really kicks butt. Like Cyberpunk's overdrive mode is awesome. Control was awesome. Minecraft, all those. But they have to run this denoiser thing. So what Ray DLSS 3.5 Ray Reconstruction does is basically replaces the hand-tuned denoiser algorithms that game developers currently use in their games to clean up those ray traced images to put its AI to the work, who does all that stuff much more efficiently, trained on much more data. In addition to the basic temporal and spatial denoising thing, it's specifically looking for ray traced visual effects. So it's smart enough to know, hey, this is supposed to be ray traced. Let's pay a little more attention to this. It's trained on a lot more data, and it also takes in game data, like what the actual simple colors on the screen are, and what is actually on the screen. It's not just the raw denoising that traditional denoisers have been. And so what that does is it provides much more accurate ray traced visuals per NVIDIA's claims. Again, I haven't had a chance to try it hands-on yet, but I have noticed there have been times, NVIDIA mentioned this in their presentation, I can totally attest that I've seen this. Like sometimes when you see ghosting in a game,
especially fast action. Yep.
Fast action. That's typically because of the way denoising works with DLSS. Because you got to remember that the way DLSS works is it starts with the low resolution images, and then it uses its AI magic to upscale it to fit your screen.
Mm-hmm.
So if those low resolution raycast images are grainy and the denoisers are missing little bits of it, when DLSS uses that information to blow it up to your screen, you tend to lose some accuracy, you lose some vividness. This goes in and looks to fix all that. So you can see, for example, less ghosting. They say you'll be able to see much more clearly, like car headlights are coming out of the headlights and not just like an amorphous blob coming out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So on and so forth, stuff like that. Much more accurate reflections. They say reflections is one of the worst ones in water puddles and whatnot on mirrors, just because of, all the complexities involved. But with ray reconstruction, you can see much more clarity. Like they shared a Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty example that had the reflection. Actually, you could read the letters from the building across the street in the reflection, whereas with traditional techniques, you could not. So if you play ray tracing games, it seems like a really, really cool step forward. Again, the proof is in the pudding. I haven't had a chance to test it myself yet, but on paper, it looks pretty dang cool. And NVIDIA's clearly putting a lot of time and effort into ray tracing DLSS, and I think the fact that they gave it a 0.5 update actually signifies I think this is a fairly big deal.
Okay. But so that
was long-winded. You said do it. A simple explanation. It's hard to get much more simpler than that. This is all really complicated stuff.
No, I think it was right. I do want to hear Mike's take on it because I'm curious. But I think for me, I'm not going to say I'm an expert in it, but at least in the terms of video and photography, we use denoisers plenty. So like the same thing kind of applies, except for you doing it at a more infinite scale because you're having to do it in real time. So I can only imagine. But I mean, at the examples that they showed of the limitations of hand-tuned denoisers and things like that, and I'm like, okay, actually this is the same kind of thing that applies to video and photography. So not necessarily the motion thing always, but at least the way reflections handle, and it's like, oh, okay, it can kind of muddy an image or make it less vivid, right? The colors can kind of get desaturated when you apply a lot of denoising to it. So if ray tracing inherently has more noise in it and they need to do the denoiser to it, this sounds like a better option. I think the bigger question I have for me is this something that somebody's going to be able to check in a settings menu in a game, or is this just something that gets implemented by a developer and we reap the benefits of it?
DLSS is always implemented by the developer.
Well, I mean,
I'm not-
specifically the ray reconstruction part of it.
I didn't ask that specific question. I'm not sure. I think that if 3.5 is supported, it'll just be supported. A good thing is it'll be unlike DLSS 3, which adds the AI frames. DLSS 3.5 is supported by all RTX GPUs.
Yeah, actually.
So I think that if a game supports RTX DLSS 3.5, there'd be no reason not to just have it work if it's supported. So I would guess that if it's supported by the game, it'll just be on.
Yeah, if you want to show slide 31, which I thought was interesting too, because they kind of break down the chart of the different DLSS versions and which GPUs are supported on it. We're starting to get a little bit in that territory of like, okay, wait, only certain features are on specific cards, but then this new ray reconstruction is 3.5, but it's available on all RTX GPUs. So
it's complicated.
It's
complicated. Yeah, the easy way to think about it is you need RTX 40 series for AI frame gen, and that is a toggleable option. Everything else should just work on all RTX GPUs.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I was just, if you want to pull it, the whole idea of, is this something that the user can pick? Obviously, frame generation is a check mark. You can turn on and off. I mean, all ray tracing is usually a check mark to say if you want it or not, because I know there's people in the chat who are probably not big fans of ray tracing to begin with. But I do wonder if, like, okay, is the ray reconstruction, would there ever be a situation where you actually want it to use the traditional denoiser, maybe a performance thing? It's like, hey, ray reconstruction does have a little bit of performance overhead, and if you're on an older GPU, maybe you don't want to use that one. That's why I was curious about the implementation. Did they talk at all about performance impacts?
They did. They said you may see a small performance uplift in 3.5 games. Pardon me. But it will totally depend on the game. This is not targeting performance whatsoever. It's pure visual quality. The reason you might see a performance uplift in some games, they specifically mentioned Cyberpunk 2077, is because that game has so many ray tracing effects. It already uses possibly several different kinds of denoiser technologies. Like it might use a spatial and a temporal one. They might have different denoisers running it. That's all getting replaced by this one DLSS 3.5 ray reconstruction process. So you might get 5 or 10 frames more per second, a negligible kind of uplift at the rates that you're running. But you shouldn't go into this looking for faster performance, just better visuals.
Okay, I mean, which is not a bad thing. I mean, I personally like ray tracing and the bells and whistles it provides. Mike Kreider, what's your personal opinion on ray tracing?
Usually, I keep ray tracing turned off. Even on single player games, I'm the kind of guy who just likes as much resolution and as accurate resolution as I can get on my big giant monitor. And my computer is not powerful enough to do full ray tracing 60 frames per second across 3,000 pixels. I think NVIDIA might have a bit of a communications issue here, because between the parts of DLSS 3.0 and then jumping to 3.5 that are available on this GPU and not this GPU are starting to get really jumbled for me personally. I turn on DLSS and it is a dramatic improvement just in terms of performance. But like this thing over here will not work on my 3070, but this thing will, even though it's a higher number than what it was before. It's making my head spin. So I don't know what to turn on and what to look for and what not to. It takes like a solid 40-minute dive into these technical explanations just to say, hey, here's what you need to turn on to make it look good, and here's what you need to turn off to make it run fast. That sounds like a good article we could write up.
Oh, there you go. Always thinking like the writer. I appreciate that, Mike. Okay, well, I'm sorry, maybe you already stated this, but it probably went through my ears. When can we start seeing the fruits of this DLSS 3.5 label?
It will be in Phantom Liberty when the Cyberpunk expansion comes out, September, I believe it is. Yeah, the end of September. Okay. September's a packed month. It will be in Alan Wake 2. which comes out in October. It will also be worked into the Portal RTX remake, which is getting updated this fall with that. Well, that already is a showcase basically for RTX technologies. It even has the RTX IO storage stuff, and then more to come.
Well, speaking of tentpole stuff, Willis, why don't you go ahead and show slide 11? Packed in this information was announcing Half-Life 2 RTX. That's what got me pretty excited. This is just a mod project, correct?
Well, it's not quite just a mod project. Like Nvidia worked together to get 4 top modding groups in the Half-Life 2 scene together to start working on this. I forget the name of the studio, but there's a studio name behind this, and that's basically those 4 top modding groups. They're starting to work on this. They're hoping to get more people to come help out. That's part of the reasoning for this announcement. But what they got already going looks pretty dang good.
Yeah, like Half-Life 2 is one of those games that I used to play almost yearly because I felt like it just held up and was like, I don't know, it's just a tentpole release for me. So, but I can't remember the last time I played it. I think it was like maybe 2020 was the last time that I went through it. So now I'm like, okay, now I definitely have a reason to go back into it and play it. I'm pretty excited. Willis, have you ever played Half-Life 2?
Dabbled with it when I was young, yeah.
Well, now you got a reason to top back into it.
Did you play the VR version?
No, unfortunately, I have not. I still need to do that.
I still kind of wish it's cool that they're doing all these modding projects, and I love that RTX Remix is a modding-driven thing because I'm a big believer in mods and the openness of the PC. I love it. Some of the most popular games today have their inspiration, their roots in mods. But I also really wish, even though it's a proprietary technology, I wish that companies would get on board with this sometimes if it's not too hard to add the RTX Remix, as NVIDIA keeps claiming, because they launched it talking about Morrowind. And if I could actually play RTX Remix Morrowind, like I would jump into that tomorrow. And I'm sure there's plenty of folks who would do that with older games too.
Yeah, it's super fun to rediscover some of those old games in different lights. I mean, I was actually a big fan of the Minecraft because it was just it's like, oh my god, like this is completely different than how Minecraft normally looks, and it blows my mind.
I play Minecraft a lot. I actually just had to yell at my kids before we started doing a full nerd because they were playing Minecraft together on laptops and taking all my internet bandwidth. But we play hide and seek, basically, in Minecraft sometimes.
Okay.
Which is always cool. It's always fun. But I think I discussed this when Minecraft RTX came out. Doing it with the realistic shadows, the lighting, and everything in the full RTX, like, took it to a whole new level. So.
You don't find that incongruous between the super realistic lighting and the fact that everything is a meter-sized cube?
Oh, it's a little weird. It takes a second.
I would say that
cool.
That was cool. Like, it was like... It was unique. I don't know, because it was just like, yeah, you've got this like pixel art, but then it was like actually illuminated correctly, and I don't know. I think
that it's voxel, not pixel. People get very particular about this.
I think that that was harder for me to wrap my head around was the fact that with ray tracing on, you couldn't have the like near infinite block scale like I can on my
Yeah. Speaking of near infinite information, Intel drops some no, I don't know why it's not near infinite. Infinite amounts of interesting information Intel dropped. I guess let's just start off with the Arc GPU updates.
I think that's I think that's actually the big news, although maybe not necessarily as interesting to the full nerd crowd.
Well, let's show Willis. Why don't we go slide 11 for the Intel ones? There's some news. What's the news that they were sharing last week?
Yeah, so basically, as we all know, Intel's debut Arc GPUs came out a little under a year ago. They haven't even been out for a year yet. And they had excellent ray tracing performance, excellent DirectX 12 performance, but they had a lot of bugs, terrible performance in DirectX 9, DirectX 11. Since then, Intel's been working hard to listen and fix all those, and they've done a tremendous job. We have a bunch of articles and videos going back saying, hey, these aren't buggy anymore. A few months after launch, they released a big new driver that re-architected the way it handles DirectX 9, and we saw massive improvements in games like CS:GO and League of Legends and whatnot. You know, the esports games that still run on DX9. But DirectX 11 games are kind of the bread and butter of gaming. Like right now, a lot of the AAA games are switching over to DirectX 12. Most of the major releases you'll buy will be DirectX 12, but most of the games that people play on PC are still DirectX 11. And Intel still was behind the pack there. But last week, sat down with Tom Peterson and some other folks from Intel. Tom Peterson's been on the show before. And they basically said with this new driver that they just put out, DirectX 11, they re-architected that driver as well to reduce a lot of the driver overhead and other issues that cause some of the, uneven performance on DirectX 11 games. And
Slide 7.
Hmm?
Sorry, I was just telling Willis which slide to show off. So they did have some examples of uplift in gains from the launch driver.
Yeah,
which I thought was interesting that they're
it
using
was the
the
same
launch
with
driver,
DirectX. It's the launch driver. They have to re-architect it to change stuff, I'm sure, at a fundamental level. But you got to change a lot of hand tune stuff in this stuff. So I'm sure this is the culmination of many months worth of work with them slowly picking away at these games. But they now say that on average, DirectX games run 19% faster than they did at launch, which is great. Hey, there's a 20% performance gain, as well as 20% smoother. So one of the issues that happened with Arc at launch is that there was stuttering frame pacing issues.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're saying, hey, with all this re-architecting that we've done, we managed to fix a lot of that too. They gave us a selection of games to show off some of the, the ranges that you could see. But they said, yeah, in general, like 19% faster, 20% more responsive. We heard you. We're putting in the work. These games should run better on Arc now.
I mean, honestly, the looking at the games that they showed in this chart, I mean, these are some of the biggest games that I can think of that are heavily played. I mean, League of Legends, Genshin Impact, Apex Legends, Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, GTA Online, obviously. So yeah, I mean, these are important games to really highlight and say, hey, you know what, we made some maximum performance improvements, which is, I mean, good on them for continuing to develop and work more on the driver stuff.
I'm hoping to, once Gamescom dies down and get my house set back together, to retest the Arc A750 versus the RX 6600. Because right now in our best graphics cards, and we've also done follow-up videos for this, we said, hey, Arc is doing a lot better, but it, still is a little bit behind on DirectX 11, and games just run more reliably on the Radeon 6600. And I'm really curious to see if that's still the case. So right now in our best GPUs, we have it split as best budget is the Radeon 6600, but best budget, if you want to ray trace, is the Arc A750. And I'm curious to see if that all still applies after all these updates, because Intel's been working real hard on this.
Yeah. Another thing they talked about, which I thought was interesting, was the performance improvements depending on the CPU that you paired it with. They had this one slide, slide 13, Willis, where the uplift was higher on this i5 13400F versus the 13900K, which I'm going to assume is because they were able to get, with a higher end CPU, you're able to kind of just push through some of those driver overhead issues, correct?
Yep. This is kind of building off. I don't know if anyone remembers earlier this summer, Intel released this big campaign around, hey, we did tons of testing to figure out what class of CPU is best to match with what class of GPU. And in their findings, they tested NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel. They didn't just test the Intel Arc. And they said in their findings, the super powerful GPU should be matched with a Core i9 or a Ryzen 9. But for these affordable level ones, the best, sweet spot for actually getting the most performance out of it without spending ridiculous amounts of money is Core i5 or Ryzen 5. So yes, if you're using that kind of balanced system like they recommend, that's where you get this 19% faster average in 1080p games on DirectX 11. If you switch to a Core i9, it drops to 12%. And that is because the Core i9 can in fact just bulldoze over some of the initial issues.
Yeah, and just to be clear, all the charts that we showed beforehand were with that Core i5, not the Core i9. So
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
which people might take issue with that because that's not really the way we test GPUs per se in a vacuum. Like we test with high-end rigs to eliminate bottlenecks. But I genuinely believe that matching a Core i5 with things like this is perfect. And I think this is a perfectly valid way to break this down. And they were not hiding this fact whatsoever. They're like, yeah, it'll be less on a Core i9, but if you're running a $250 graphics card with a Core i9, what are you doing? Other than maybe AV1 encoding or whatever.
You know, I'm sure people are using it out there. That's for damn sure.
So you'll still see an uplift if you are doing that, but not as pronounced.
Yeah, and the last time Keith did a check-in was at the 6-month mark. We've talked about various check-ins when it's worth it, because at some point checking in monthly just became like, okay, yeah, either the improvements weren't necessarily anything to write home about, or it was just, I mean, that's one dedicated video just to testing one dedicated piece of hardware. So we kind of put it by the wayside, but yeah, maybe we'll do a 1-year check-in or something like that. It's crazy to think that it's almost a year.
Yeah, or maybe even just the DirectX 9 update. Like, hey, is it really better, that much better on DirectX 11 now?
yeah, something to check out. Something else to check out is PresentMon. And I will be honest, before Intel provided this information, I did not think that Intel was kind of the brain power behind PresentMon, which, just so you know, is a tool people use to kind of look at analytics. PresentMon is what FrameView, NVIDIA's FrameView is built on. CapFrameX is built on PresentMon. Brad,
yeah, AMD's OCAT, MSI Afterburner, any of these monitoring tools uses PresentMon, which a lot of people assume is just part of Windows, but it's actually an open source project from Intel.
Yeah, so next time somebody says that that Jared Walton is a shill for running FrameView on AMD cards, then you need to correct yourself and say, actually, he's an Intel shill.
FrameView runs wonderfully on AMD.
So PresentMon has an update, a very important update. Well, I guess a couple updates, but there's an important one to talk about here, which is GPU busy.
Yeah, and this is the other aspect, like tying the two halves of the story together. So Intel put a lot of work into re-architecting these drivers to eliminating driver overhead, to just making them run better with DirectX 11. And they didn't say this explicitly, but they're like, how do we show people actually what we've done? Like, how can we drive across the point that, you know, what actually tangibly have we done? And so they introduced a new metric called GPU busy, which basically lets you know how much of a frame
15.
the GPU is actively busy for. So they showed a really illuminating example where they had the overlay of the actual frame times in a game. So the lower your frame times are, the faster your frames refreshing, the more responsive it is. If you have a wild frame time chart, that's when you get the stuttering that you feel.
Which is
the
example, sorry, real quick, in slide 17, the yellow is the GPU busy, the blue is the frame time.
Yeah, I don't have that slide up right now. Is that the launch driver?
Yes.
Or the new one? Yeah. The launch driver, as you can see, the yellow one is the GPU busy, is a relatively consistent 5 milliseconds, which is, you know, that's great especially for a competitive game like that. But the actual frame times you were getting were spiking all over the place.
Which, as a layman, real quick, I would have been like, wait, isn't the GPU always working? Like, why? What else is going on that the GPU isn't doing?
Well, the GPU has to wait for the CPU to process all of its data. It could be because the GPU can only draw what a CPU tells it to do. And part of this really shows how they've eliminated overhead, because if you flip to the next one, the new driver that has GPU busy,
22, slide 22.
You will see that now with the re-architected drivers, the frame times closely match that 5 millisecond GPU busy time. That's because they eliminated a lot of that driver overhead, optimized the CPU performance that was happening. Because in addition to all the normal game stuff, the basically Intel's drivers act like a translator for high-level DirectX instructions. So Microsoft Windows the game gets written for DirectX and says, "Hey, do this in DirectX." Intel hardware, Nvidia hardware, AMD hardware all have their own instructions that they then translate that into that hardware instructions for the GPU to be able to output what the CPU is telling it. So, but it has to go through that translation layer. That's where a lot of this driver overhead stuff is showing up. That's what they're kind of trying to show here. So it's really interesting on that front. So you can see, like, yeah, they actually have done a lot of work. You can tell from Overwatch right here that things are running a lot better than they had before. But it's also really interesting because you can kind of get a gross feel for whether a game is CPU or GPU limited just looking at utilization in traditional performance monitoring tools. But if you look at this, now that we have the GPU busy metric to use in addition with the standard frame times, you can really get an in-close look and say, hey, it is my GPU that's, the bottleneck here. If this is closely tracked like it is now in Overwatch, if you upgrade your GPU, you'll probably get faster frames because it's, basically spitting out frames as fast as the GPU is spitting out. But if you're still seeing those crazy frame time jumps, while the GPU busy is faster than that, then that indicates that there's either a game issue, possibly a driver issue, or more likely you could say, hey, in this scene, you can really see it's getting CPU bottlenecked real bad. So you'll hear people often talk about, hey, my graphics card runs great, except for these 3 scenes in this one game, it really chokes. Then you could pull this up and you could actually be like, yeah, it is my CPU not quite keeping up. We have a way to look at that now, which is deeply fascinating to me as a reviewer.
Right. Well, so which brings me to another note. I mean, this is information, interesting information for a reviewer, but also this is information that anybody can use to be like, okay, where is the bottleneck in my system? So it's going to be showing up in PresentMon, the new PresentMon overlay, if you want to show slide 28. But is this information going to be able to be viewable if you're like, hey, you know what? I really like using FrameView or CapFrameX. Is it going to show up there as well?
I think CapFrameX already said he's working in GPU busy. Not AMD. Intel doesn't plan on restricting any of this information. It's still all open source. This is going to be open source just as much. This is just the first time that Intel is giving GPU nerds the ability to tap into PresentMon directly, giving it an overlay, doing all that, rather than just supplying the APIs or whatever that all the other developers use. So you can view it in PresentMon beta, which I believe is live now. I think it launched last Friday, perhaps. I took a long weekend, so the days are a blur. And a cool thing about that is they have a deeply configurable overlay function, so that you can have it run multiple graphs metrics on one graph. So you can configure it so it shows both frame times and GPU busy, in addition to all the other things that you would expect out of a program like this, like memory usage, voltage, stuff like that.
Logging abilities.
Yeah, it logs it. Everything that you would want initially, it has, and they're still going to be working on it. Like you can spit out CSV files. If you're the kind of person who tracks this stuff, then use the CSV files to spit out graphs. You can have it so it just presents the raw data on screen. You can have it so it presents in graphs so you can see the differences in real time. It actually looks like a super cool, super versatile tool. But they set it up that way specifically to show this GPU busy thing, which I'm glad they did because this is really useful.
Yeah, I will admit I'm one of those people who has a hard time breaking the habit of always having some sort of metric overlay on,
Hmm.
when I'm gaming. Mike, are you like that? Are you in this horrible camp?
Oh, I pretty much just look at frames per second and then try and hit that 120 on my monitor, and that's about it. But Brad, I did want to talk to you about this specific advantage that Intel is getting with their new drivers. You were talking about how, with the translation specifically, they've got a very small, presumably small edge over an AMD or an Nvidia card with this GPU busy and this frame time stuff. They're showing it with Intel CPUs, of course. Do you get that same advantage, that same improvement in smoothness if you're using an AMD CPU?
Remains to be tested. I would think that you would. It
Mhm.
it's PresentMon is truly agnostic and always has been. Like it just straight shows you the data. I would think that typically, say a Ryzen 5 and a Core i5 are roughly the same level. Some things are better. So if you see, I would expect to see similar performance for similar level of CPUs and games, but
Mhm.
it will depend product and product and game to game. I don't think they're nerfing anything to make it run worse on AMD or Nvidia.
Well, yeah,
Right. I mean, the hardware should all match up and make that run smoothly. And I'm asking specifically because AMD processors are getting so much attention for game performance with their X3D series. It's just insane.
Yeah, I would love to play around with FrameView and GPU, not FrameView. I'm so used to FrameView. You had to mention FrameView earlier. PresentMon beta and one of those Vcache chips. I would love to. There's a lot of cool stuff you could do with this, actually. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see a bunch of really rad videos on YouTube and different testing articles around soon because this is actually super interesting. And I think it can provide a lot of good data for people in publications like us that want to know and be able to quantify now, hey, if you have, a $250 graphics card, like don't spend more than $250 or $300 on a CPU because you can see the way that they behave together. That's the reason that you wouldn't pair a Core i9 with an Arc A750, and that's why the performance leap was so much less when they showed how the Core i9 did versus the Core i5.
Hmm.
So it's just really interesting, nerdy stuff.
do you do you feel like you're going to start using it more for your GPU testing or?
Currently I use in-game benchmarks with FrameView. I do OCAT sometimes, but usually I do FrameView. I like this a lot. I haven't had too much chance to play with it yet because I don't have my test system set up yet, but I plan on playing with it very much soon, and I think there's a very good chance.
Yeah. Fun to mess around.
I am really excited about what this looks like actually.
Yeah, it's in beta. Like you mentioned, it's out. Anybody can go download this. I did ask on the presentation, like, why is it marked as a beta? Like, what kind of things are holding it back? Is it going to negatively, or I was trying to infer, is it also going to negatively impact performance just because it's a beta? Did they talk about performance?
No, I
overhead?
wouldn't worry about it too much other than the usual, they call it the observer effect. Like you are running something that looks at this, it will put a slight difference in, but nothing that should be measurable. But if you're getting like down to nitty gritty, like it might add a millisecond or, just something like that. But since this runs off PresentMon, this is basically just a wrapper for PresentMon, which again is already used by FrameView from OCAT, from everything from Fraps to Afterburner. I would expect this to run just as smoothly as those two, especially with Intel behind it.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
And the
Interesting.
way,
More
and like,
tools.
and like you said, yeah, CapFrame X, I believe on Twitter already said he is working on implementing GPU busy into it. So Intel's just making this freely available, just like they did the original PresentMon. So hopefully we start seeing this pop up in more of these monitoring tools soon, because I think it could be very spectacularly helpful for figuring out what part of your PC you should upgrade.
Yeah, if you want to go watch Tom chat with Steve over Gamers Nexus, they did a nice little chat talking about this stuff and getting even deeper into the So the whole architecture stuff, it's definitely over my head. But it was, I like having more tools at my disposal. So that's pretty cool.
Think about it. Think about how often we get asked on the show very game specific questions. Hey man, I'm running Arma. I have X, Y, and Z processor, X, Y, and Z GPU. What should I upgrade?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm running all these different games, and now we can say, we can give you some general advice, but go fire up PresentMon, just put the graph on your screen and see what it tells you over the hour or so that you play. I think there's a lot of value with that. Probably too nerdy for the general audience, but for nerds like us, like, I think it's dope.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, stepping back in the general audience, I think it's worth highlighting. Like a year ago, when they were introducing these discrete GPUs, everybody, as thrilled as we all were to see somebody to step into the discrete GPU duopoly, everyone was still treating Intel very much as an unknown quantity, which it was. I mean, I think it took them a long, long time to get this stuff out. There was obviously some behind-the-scenes delays, and people were wondering, hey, is Intel in this for the long haul? Will we even see a second generation? Which I think was kind of a silly question. This is billions of dollars invested. Intel has proven that they're in this for the long haul. They're doing consistent updates all the time. And obviously, a lot of this is aimed in a very, press forward area to prove it. But they are proving it. If the proof is in the pudding, hey, this is the pudding. And the value that they're doing in these mid-range to low-end discrete cards is astonishing. I can't wait to see what they do with a second generation, hopefully stepping up into that like RTX 4070, 7700, 7800 area. And I'm so excited to see what they do when they compete at that level, especially when it comes to value, because that's where a lot of people are kind of hurting at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I dig it. I dig it. Keep it coming, and we'll have to keep testing. Sounds like you have some testing planned. I'll chat with Keith about trying to do some testing, but go play some games. In our
it's a hard job, but somebody has to do it.
I know it's a hard job. It's a hard job to play all these damn games. So last major topic for today. I don't have any fancy segue, but Razer has decided to make a custom keyboard. I thought the whole idea of custom keyboards is that you build it yourself. What the hell, Mike Kreider?
Well, of course, you can build it yourself.
But
if you're looking,
you can build this Razer one yourself.
Well, I mean, you have to buy it from Razer initially.
Oh, okay.
When you step up to a more expensive mechanical keyboard, you've got two broad categories you can go into. You can go for, I mean, it's custom in the sense that you can customize it. And this is like, you can start around $100, but it gets into that area at about 150 to 200. You get really, really nice keyboards, full aluminum bodies, hot swap sockets that you can pull out. A lot of them are building in parts of the keyboard that were part of custom builds 3 or 4 years ago, or these extremely boutique builds, like interior foam inside the case to make it sound nicer. Gasket mounting, which is a layer of silicone in between the circuit board of the keyboard and the case of the keyboard, just to make it feel nice. There's all sorts of these little touches that people have been doing, and that's the custom side of things. That's the, I want a super nice thing to type on. I want it to feel nice. I want it to look nice. And then almost completely separated from that in the keyboard market, you've got the gamer side of things. We want super duper RGBs. We want wired all the time. We want 8,000 hertz polling, which is just insane to me. If you're a human who can tell 8,000 different keystrokes in a second, I'm very impressed. But like I said, there's up until about 6 months ago, there was a very hard divide in these. Razer's newest keyboard is the Black Widow V4 75%, which is not a great name, but here it is. They've done a lot of things to bridge the gap between these two categories of the keyboard market. You've got that 75% size, which is, bigger than 60%, which is very hard to get used to, but much, much smaller than a full size or even a TKL 10K-less. They have the hot swap socket, so you can pull the switches out. So you can see that's the circuit board right underneath there, and throw in anything you want that's compatible with the Cherry MX standard, which is literally hundreds, maybe thousands of different types of switches at this point. They have the interior foam inside the case and in between the circuit board and the other parts of it. They have the gasket mount. They've got all this stuff that they've added to it to make it much more like a custom keyboard. And it is an impressive change. It's a big directional change from Razer, who've been very much dedicated to that pure gaming. Even on the Black Widow V4 Pro, which was the previous design, they're missing a lot of these features. They're missing the gasket mount. They're missing the hot swaps. And again, that's because that's much more of a very dedicated gamer board, which is why I don't love the name change, because you've got these two different keyboards that are both named Black Widow V4, but they're very different. It is an impressive change. Another big thing is the switches. They've done a ton of work on the switches themselves. These are, let me see if I can remember this, the Razer V3 orange tactile switches that they've got. You can see this is, I don't know if you can see from my camera there.
Yeah, you can kind of see.
They've got this boxy stem that keeps everything very stable as you press down. It's a tactile switch, which is not normally associated with gaming, but they went in and they looked at the community and they said, hey, this is what people want. We'll put it in there. And it is a huge improvement. If you look at Razer's website, they've got a page dedicated specifically to their switches. And they even have like audio samples of each individual switch and what it sounds like, which is getting way deep into the woods with this custom keyboard stuff.
I mean, that's how people can get, right? It's funny. I've always just kind of peered from the sidelines and been like, huh, man, that looks like some cool, fun stuff over there. But I've never dug in myself. So real quick to jump back, Mike, are you a custom keyboard guy? Do you build your own?
I am. I build my own keyboards.
Okay, so but you've reviewed this for the site. You review normal keyboard. So what's the opposite of custom keyboards? What's
I mean, in this
keyboards
particular dichotomy, we'd call it just a gaming keyboard and a regular keyboard.
Oh, okay.
And then custom keyboards. You can go so granular into so many different areas. But just as an example, a more traditionally custom keyboard would be this Keychron Q1 Pro, which has the full super heavy aluminum body. It also has hot swap switches. It's got a much higher profile for typing. And this is more on the side of that custom, not necessarily gaming. It'll work fine for gaming, but it's not really designed for that. And as I said, typically Razer is on the other side of that equation. With this keyboard, they're really straddling that line. You've got features on both sides that appeal to a lot of people.
Yeah, and this is the first time they've done something like this, correct?
It is. It is the very first Razer keyboard with the hot swap function specifically, which is a big deal for a lot of people.
Well, yeah,
I was shocked. I didn't talk to you much before your review went live, and I was reading your review, and I'm like, wow, I never expected this out of Razer. Mm-hmm. Like it's very different. I'm very intrigued by that keyboard.
I mean,
yeah, they went super deep into the community. Just as an example, there's a very popular aftermarket mod that you can do to almost any keyboard. You open it up, you take out the circuit board, and you just add duct tape to the back. And it's a very simple tweak that's easy for almost anyone to do. But a lot of people really like the way that changes the sound and the feel. Razer put that tape on there out of the box. Awesome. That's just something that they thought was cool that they added in.
Yeah, you're saying all this, and this sounds like a big enough deal. Like, why didn't they make this a whole separate new line? Like, I mean, they could have come out with almost like a new line, right? Like, hey, look, like we have a new custom keyboard line.
I mean, I didn't talk to them about that specifically, but if I was reading the tea leaves, I'd say that they want to preserve the popularity of their Black Widow series. There's some things that they chose very specifically to keep in line with that. For example, one of the things I didn't like in the review is that these have ABS keycaps instead of PBT. And those are just two different kinds of plastic. Not really something that a lot of people care about. But if you're buying a custom keyboard at this level, it's $190. You expect to get PBT keycaps. And they were like, no, our Black Widows have always used ABS. We're going to keep that specifically because we like the way it looks with the RGB lighting. And you can take their word for that. I think they're shaving a few dollars off of it because they also sell PBT keycaps on top of that for like a $30 upgrade, which is not something I'm in love with. But again, that's another example of how this straddles the line between the custom and the gaming markets.
And so you said it was $190 US?
190. I think there's a white version that's coming slightly later, but it's 200.
Oh, okay. How much of a premium over another relevant Black Widow is that to have these custom features?
It's actually less expensive than the last Black Widow. I think the Black Widow V4 Pro, which was their full-sized 108 key traditional gaming design, is $230 or $240. So, I mean, you expect to pay less for a slightly smaller keyboard, but there are so many more features, so much more engineering that goes into it, and it's still coming in at a lower price, which is impressive.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that because I don't know. I would think like, oh, okay, they want to get in the custom keyboard, craziness that's going on out there, and they're going to use it as a chance to be like, oh, you know what, we're going to add our features into it here. We're going to take a pre-existing line, we're going to make it more customizable, but it's going to come with some sort of price increase. That's interesting. Well, so real quick, what was your synopsis of the review then? Just holistically.
I think I just gave it. The way it's a great keyboard to get into if you want those gaming features and you're also curious about the customization aspect of it. Like if you've been in this for years, you've already got a keyboard that you like, or you're looking into something that's more on the custom side of it. But if you've been into gaming keyboards for years and you want to check out this super customized side of it, this is a great way to get into that area. With one caveat that I brought up in the review, they talk about how they've done all these upgrades on the inside and about how it's so cool to customize it. But if you open it up, you do void the warranty, which is not something you see in some of the super custom designs. There's specifically on the back, they made a big deal about how it's only 6 screws to take this whole thing apart, which is very cool. But there's a sticker over this screw right here. And if you puncture that sticker, your warranty's gone.
That's lame. Oh, they were so close. So close.
I'm sure I'll bet that was they're looking at, because some people are going to open it up and break it. That's just the reality of it. And they're looking at a bottom line, projecting how many people are going to break it and ask for a repair.
I fall into the gaming keyboard side that you just described. I don't have a lot of experience with custom keyboards. I've dabbled with some, but usually like I'll spend $200 on a custom keyboard. And for me, this is really intriguing because I've always been intrigued by custom keyboards. I'm like, man, that seems like a lot. This seems like, especially because you do tend to lose some of the features that you get on gaming keyboards. So this, to me, seems like a really interesting gateway drug kind of a deal. And I might wind up picking that up someday. I'm really intrigued by it.
Yep.
So, sorry, just so I understand. So what can you customize it without voiding the warranty versus what can you customize with voided the warranty?
Okay. Everything on the top of the keyboard, you can take apart and be fine with your warranty. You've got the keycaps that you can swap out, like on almost any keyboard that's mechanical. You can pull the switches out and replace them with any switch that's compatible with the standard Cherry build, which is these 2 little copper stems on the bottom there. Anything that'll fit in there, and it works with 5-pin stems as well. That's a matter of mounting. It's about as universal as it can be while preserving that. I don't know. I guess you could paint the top of it if you wanted to. But the keycaps and the switches, you can do as much custom work as you want. And then the software is standard Razer Synapse. So that's pretty great programming as far as it goes. It's not the open source VIA that I prefer, but gamers like the Synapse. Like I would say, as somebody who's used pretty much all of the custom gaming software that comes with keyboards and mice out there, Razer's is probably the best, which isn't to say that it's great, but it's the best in this field.
I just wish they wouldn't make you restart your whole system every time it updates the software. It drives me crazy.
You don't really have to do that. You can just quit out Synapse and reboot Synapse.
Oh, really? Oh, pro tip. There we go.
That is a pro tip.
Well, okay. So then, if you do decide to void your warranty, what can you swap on the inside?
Oh, you can change it out for different kinds of foam. You can adjust the gaskets. You could take off that tape if you wanted, or even replace it with some other tape. There's tons of stuff that people do on the inside of their keyboards, some of which really should void warranty. But for example, if you just wanted to take off that layer or take out the foam, I don't think that should void a 2 or 3 year warranty. But
they had to put the gate somewhere, and there's no easy way to put the gate with destroying the actual PCB.
It is more complicated on the inside than like just a standard 60% would be. There's some daughter boards in there.
Oh,
but it's just a matter of plugging stuff and unplugging it.
Oh, interesting. We do have a couple super chats from friend of the show, Mike Quinton. Thank you so much. His first $20 super chat said, excluding gaming keyboards, did today's keyboards have the quality of the IBM Model M sold by others? Has anyone asked the professional keyboard users, office workers who use them 8 hours a day, what keyboard they like? So do you feel like,
well,
so first part, do you feel like it's still up to the quality of the IBM Model M? Which is
it depends on what you're talking about. It's depending on what you're talking about in terms of quality. If you want something that you can use to like fight off a bear, because it's indestructible. No, I'd say these are not that super tough. Use it for 20 years kind of build. You can certainly buy ones that are like that, and those will be very expensive. Start at about the $200 range with those full metal cases and just be super, super chunky. But if that old-fashioned office build is what you want, they're still selling those. I forget what the company is called, but they're selling like the original Model M design. I think it might be Unicomp, that you can buy with a regular USB connector and just type on that like it's 1985 all day long. We've got a review of that on PCWorld. Just look for... Really? Yeah, just search for like Model M review and it'll pop up.
That one's a Model F, but yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah, another guy who works with us, Matt Smith, reviewed the Model F compact modern keyboard, and he absolutely loved it and its buckle springs, but it costs $420. So you can get that. You can get that feel with the modern day touches, but it'll cost you.
Nice. And if you're curious about those old fashioned ones because they're not compatible with the newer type designs, you can go on eBay and find an old Model F, Model M, not a perfect condition one, but one that was, made maybe somewhere between 1998 and 2003, and get that for under $100. You'll need an adapter to plug it in via USB, but it'll work just fine. And you can fairly easily take it all apart and clean it because you're going to need to. But if you're curious about that, it doesn't take a whole lot of money or time to get into it.
Huh.
I know no less than 3 separate people who swear by Model M keyboards and do exactly that. They have the adapters. They love those things.
Nice. All right, we should have one in our Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, I see one right now on eBay selling it for $100.
Oh, look at that!
There you go.
You better grab it, Willis, before somebody else does. You just put it out there in the world. Mike Quinton also gave us another $20 super chat. Thanks so much. No question. Just said, folks at work don't follow key travel benchmarks or the keycap colors coding, and will use whatever is in the box that the unit is delivered. That's the biggest concern is carpal tunnel, which is no joke. That is true. Definitely want to get a good keyboard.
I'll say, since that's relevant, the Razer one does come with this very nice wrist rest.
Yeah.
And, a lot of them at this price level come with some kind of wrist rest. I've got a Steel Series right here I'm reviewing that's just like hard plastic. Just appreciated, but not great. But this one has this super, super comfy, cushy thing that I like.
Interesting. Custom keyboard. I'm still on the sidelines. I don't know. I feel like personally that this isn't like I wouldn't use this as a stopgap personally. I think I want to just like dive head deep into it. But yeah, it is intriguing, especially for that price. That doesn't sound bad.
And if you spend all day typing, it really is, just like Mike Quinton was alluding to, worth spending up for the stuff that you touch all day. Like, yes. I worked 8 to 10 hours a day touching my mouse, touching my keyboard, looking at a display. So when it comes time to upgrade, those are the three things along with my office chair I look at first. So don't sell those short while you're shopping for your new processor or graphics card.
Definitely. Yeah. We had somebody in the chat earlier that said they oh, here we go. Friend of the show, Retro Sean, said, I have a problem with paying as much for a keyboard as I did my CPU. So
buy a more
priorities.
expensive CPU. Problem solved.
Yeah, hey, there you go. Yeah, then be like,
it's all relative.
All right, custom keyboards. Yeah. So now, do you feel like now that Razer has done this, that we're going to see other major keyboard manufacturers like Corsair try to get into it?
We've seen a few of them get into it in very small ways, dipping a toe in. Like I think Corsair has had a few keyboards that are hot swap for the switches specifically, but they leave out stuff like that interior foam, all the gasket mount stuff. One of the things that's a bit of a barrier here is some of the really cool gaming specific technology means that you can't have hot swap switches. Like there are optical switches where you can adjust the level of actuation. It's either optical or it's magnetic, and you can make that adjustment, but that is such a complex process that you can't pull the switches out. So I've got an Asus keyboard here that tried to do the full super custom stuff. They've got the hot swaps, they've got the interior foam. This was the Azoth, and frankly I wasn't really impressed with it because they made a couple of big missteps. They've got an LCD screen here, which is an interesting thing to add to it, but I think functionally it does very, very little, and it adds a huge amount of cost. This is a $250 keyboard. And on top of all of that, Razer has a distinct advantage in the software because as big and as complex as Razer Synapse is, it runs low profile. It gets out of the way when you want it to, which is not something I could say for Asus. I think theirs is called Armory Crate, which has ads and coupons and like discounts for games and stuff in there. But this is all stuff I don't want when I just want to go in and change what this key does.
Razer, I feel like Razer used to be worse at that too, where it was like, oh, do you want to install this and this and that? And I'm like, no, I just want to control the thing that I need.
I want to say 8 or 9 years ago, people really hated Razer software, and for good reason, because like you had to make an account to go in and change the colors that your lights were. They've done a lot of improvement there, and it shows.
All right, nice. Custom keyboards. It's the craze. It's all the craze. Hop in on the craze. You know what else you can hop in on is viewer Q&A. Let's go ahead and finish the show off with some viewer Q&A. If you have a question,
that one worked.
Yeah, there we go.
That segue worked.
Thank you. If you're with us live hanging out, thank you. Also, if you have a question, put it in the chat at PCWorld. Is kind of the easiest way for us to spot it. If you're watching or listening later, there's a link to the Discord in our description. We've had lengthy discussions over the past week about all the LTT stuff. So hop in there, join the good crew that we have over there. But we also have a channel for questions that hopefully I will read on the show. If you pop it in there, I am going to switch over there because we have some good questions. Here's a good one from a friend of the show, Ziv. Thank you. Said, Adam, did you experience any odd noise that Gamers Nexus did in the review of the Fractal Design Terra? Number one, unfortunately, I have not watched Gamers Nexus review, so it's on my list. Ziv, I don't know if you're in the chat or anybody in the chat can explain what that noise was, just because I haven't watched the video. But I will say that we got another one. Oh, it's not here. It's back here. We got the jade color in, so we'll give that one a try too, and look for whatever odd sound. I don't remember. Oh, there it is. I don't remember hearing any odd sounds, but once again, if somebody in the chat can tell me what the actual sound was, but yeah, so I haven't noticed anything. I'll get back to you on that one.
Don't scare me now, because I'll be building on that.
Yeah. They did come back in stock. It immediately refreshed as we were talking about it. So we got one for.
I'm not surprised they're hard to find. Those are gorgeous little cases.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's a follow up to keyboard question from friend of the show, Bob Jones, 1980. Are there any keyboards that have like 20% larger keycaps for big hands? Oh, that's a good question.
Not that I am aware of, not in this particular segment anyway, because everything has to be standardized for these specific switches. So there's a limit to how big the keycaps can get while still fitting on the board for this particular switch, and where they don't overlap with all the other keycaps. If you're looking into something like that, I do know they make very small keyboards for small people who have trouble typing on larger boards. They're getting into very specialized hardware that goes out of the realm of what we review, some accessibility stuff. I haven't heard of one that is specifically designed for people with large fingers or large hands, except for like novelty stuff you might see at a show that's like 3 feet wide. But I would look for any company that specializes in accessibility hardware might have what you're looking for.
That's interesting. Huh. We got a question from Zoid Wraith in the chat. How excited is Brad for a 7800 XT that probably won't be faster than a 6800 XT? Allegedly. Oh,
I mean,
there we go.
yeah, I don't prejudge anything I test. If that comes out, I already spoke what we thought about the benchmarks on the last show. It's all going to come down to performance and price. These are totally new. If the rumors are true, GPUs, like we can take some ideas from how it's configured and how the other versus last gen, as well as the performance uplift we saw on current gen higher end cards. But I don't prejudge anything. If it does wind up being just as fast as the 6800 XT or just a little bit smaller, if this in fact happens, again, I really much think it's going to, because that I think it was ASRock leaked Power Color leaked everything. ASRock leaked the names. It looks pretty darn official. But if it's a little bit faster than 6800 XT, but they price it at $300, that would be great. So it really is like you need to see the full picture. But if it's roughly the same price for minuscule performance uplift, I mean, you can see my reviews of Nvidia hardware to see what I thought about that.
We got a super. I'm sorry, VC Chester, you're right. I did miss your super chat. $5. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It said, every suggestion is something worthy of listening to. One person can have a lot of answers, but it took a team to land on the moon. Did we actually land on the moon? I don't know.
Did we?
Yes.
Did we?
Yes.
End of discussion.
I'm just asking the question. We had a question from, here we go, Grant Hampson. Thank you for joining us. He's asking thoughts on the Corsair K100. Those have swappable keys.
I don't think I've been able to try out the latest version of their full-size K100. I think a year ago, maybe a little more, we reviewed the K100 Air, which was their super low profile. It used Cherry's ultra low profile switches, not hot swap. So, but I was not impressed with it because it was basically a very nice laptop keyboard that was $280. Which, yeah, it was
That's the price of a laptop.
Painful. I have tried out a few different Corsairs. I think it was the K70. They have such confusing names. One of the very small 60% K70s. And they're all right. But again, it was priced much, much higher than a lot of the other alternatives out there. So I'm sorry, I can't give you a specific opinion about that very specific keyboard. But going on the other range of it, if you want to try out hot swap stuff on a gaming keyboard and you don't want to spend a lot of money, we have a very specific recommendation. It is the G Skill, I think it's KM250 or possibly 350. But you can check out our keyboard roundup, and if for gaming, it is our budget pick because it's a fantastic little board you can get for $40. You heard that right. That is the retail price of it. It has hot swap sockets. It has interior foam. It has the little dial that does your volume. It is just an incredible value, and it's a great place to start if you want to try out this custom keyboard stuff and you're on a budget.
I had no
A
idea.
peek behind the curtains, we were working on launching that gaming keyboard roundup, but we didn't want to super much without a budget keyboard. And then Mike picked this thing up and he's like, all right, now we can do a best gaming keyboards because this is a good budget keyboard.
Wow. I had no idea. I didn't know G-Skill made keyboards. Interesting. Couple more here. From friend of the show, Great Mighty Dad. Said, I always enjoy these special episodes when you have guests from AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel on. Any chance you might have AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel guests on the same show at the same time in the same studio? That could make for a very entertaining, if not potentially combustible episode. I agree. That would be fun. Brad, what do you think? Do you think we could make that happen?
I think that would be wonderful. I'm not sure the PR handlers who you don't see just off screen for all these interviews would like for that to happen.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a recording studio. That would be a wrestling ring. And I sure would pay to see it.
We just get some alcohol. We loosen them up. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time.
One thing that's, I think people don't really realize, especially in the enthusiast level, that we get to see here from, working, talking with these people, is that all these people at different companies, like in the press and the media and the forums and everything, it's like AMD versus Intel versus Nvidia, which is true at a high level. But when you get down to individual people level, like a lot of these folks have worked at 2 or 3 of these companies, and they all have immense amount of respect for each other. So it very well could be a fun wrestling match, but it also could just be a bunch of nerds getting deep into how PresentMon works.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar for us. Like most of us have worked at other publications.
Yeah.
And that's true for almost anybody who's been on this side of the media for, more than 3 or 4 years. And there's really not a lot of animosity, current events notwithstanding, between people who work at these different publications. We're all doing our jobs and we're all nerds and we all love to talk about this stuff. That's about as far as it goes.
Yeah, maybe the right topic, right? Maybe a topic that's so high level that they all could get behind and be on a show about. Like, I'm thinking an easy low hanging fruit is the Gordon wants to kill ATX. We get representatives from the major 3 on to talk about the downfalls of ATX and how to fix it.
I was thinking fast food fries.
There we go.
Oh.
There we go. Yeah. We go even higher. We don't even talk technology.
People get passionate about that. We won't have to throw any punches at all.
There we go. We need Pat Gelsinger, Lisa Sue, and Jensen to all sit around the table and debate the different fries and come up with a tier list.
Or better yet, chips.
Yeah,
get that SEO in there.
There you go.
Potato chips to be specific.
That's one way to get them on the
That'd
show.
be a fantastic video.
Yeah, right. We're gonna get them to come here to talk about chips. They're like, wait, I thought we were here to talk about microchips. No, we're talking about potato chips here. Everyone.
Yeah, get that.
Now I want you guys to try to make this happen at CES. Get 3 people from those 2 companies in the same room. Save it for April Fools. We pick the brains.
No, there's no way. There's no way.
Chip experts.
We could definitely interview each one of them individually, but man, in the same room.
Yeah. No, it's never gonna happen.
Get them on a blue screen. We'll put them all in the same shot.
Oh yeah. All right, a couple more here. A friend of the show, Star Screamus, asked, Quake 2 Remaster recently released, as did Rise of the Triad Remaster. Are you hyped for either of those, or alternatively, is there another old PC game you would like to be remastered?
Quake 2 Remaster, I'm going to play it sometime. Haven't had a chance yet. I haven't had a chance to play either of those because, again, my house burned down, so I've been kind of busy. But Rise of the Triad is one of those games that I grew up playing. Like, I loved. It's got all sorts of problems with it on many different levels, but it just scratches my childhood itch. And the folks who put that out, I know do really good work on remasters, so I am super pumped about that. I think it would be awesome, again, to get an RTX remix of Morrowind, although that's not quite as old. But I would love to see a VR remaster of Descent, but I think it would make me puke.
Oh my god! But I mean, that lighting, I do remember the lighting in Descent, and like it, having an RTX or ray tracing, whatever, implementation there would be pretty crazy.
Yeah, I would pay money for that.
Also, when I think of lighting, I think of Doom 3 as well. And like, I mean, say whatever you will about the game itself. Like the lighting was the highlight of that game. So maybe actually doesn't need ray tracing. I don't know, but I know Keith is a big fan of Doom 3. He will defend its merits. Go fight him on Twitter.
The thing I've said ever since I was fortunate enough to be in Gamescom 5 years ago when the RTX 20 series ray tracing and DLSS was introduced. I got to play around with Battlefield, I think was the only one they had running at the time, and it only had reflections. But even just that little bit, I'm like, I would kill for a Thief remake. Not the newer, okay, hit or miss ones, but like the original kind of games, faithfully. You got to update it for modern times, but with full path tracing and accurate lighting and reflections and stuff, I think would be a game changer for that game. And I would be down for that.
That's a really cool pick.
Any old games you wanna see remastered, Willis?
Has there been any remaster for Command and Conquer Red Alert?
There was actually a really good one, yeah, for Red Alert 1. That you could like toggle between the two styles. I think it came out like 2 years ago, something like that.
Oh,
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really good.
That toggle between the two styles is exactly why I remember it, because it was super cool. Just
Yeah.
being able to flip,
You're
flip.
just like in the middle. You're like, oh, that's funny. Oh, that's funny. Oh, yeah. No, good
Yeah.
pull. Good pull. All right. One last fun one before we get out of here. Also, from friend of the show, Star Screamus. What are your favorite ingredients to put in tacos? Brad?
I'm pretty straightforward. I like to I use a variety of different meats and stuff. It's funny, my girlfriend just moved in with her recently, and her tacos are very much gringo tacos. So I'm introduced to her world and new stuff. But one of my go-to is I always pickle my own red onions. And I have pickled red onions, and I have roasted various colored peppers that I like to throw in there. I'm a big fan of chimichurri sauce in there. But yeah, for me, those home pickled red onions are the things I need to have every time I make a taco at home.
Nice. Mike, Taco Man?
For me, when I make tacos, it's pretty straightforward. No huge deviations in the major ingredients, but there is a seasoning that I absolutely love for almost anything, and it's called California Pepper Plant. They sell it as a hot sauce. That's their primary business, is just like not quite a salsa, not quite a Tabasco kind of thing, but they also sell it as a dry seasoning that you can put on it. And I put that on almost any kind of meat. Especially beef. It tastes great. So California Pepper Plant, you can order it on Amazon.
I'm going to now.
Yeah, I was looking it up. That's interesting. Never heard of that.
Quick, Adam, put affiliate buy and link in the.
Oh, good. Bye. Yeah.
I mean, I love that stuff so much. I take it with me when I travel.
All right. Yeah.
Do you have a little mini version that you keep on your key loop?
Pulling a Beyonce.
Not quite that bad. I just know if I'm going to be somewhere for days or weeks, I got to have my fix.
Interesting. Okay. Willis, tacos?
Pico de gallo. I need my tangy salsa all the time.
I like it. I like all the just meat. Like the meat's got to be the big deal on it. So I actually don't like a ton of extra stuff. Me personally, but if I do, it's got to be the cheese. Like the cheese elevates a taco for me too. Excuse me.
What kind of cheese do you put on there?
Please don't say cheddar.
No. Depends on the meat. I honestly, I think it depends on the meat. Wow. Robert Lawrence says chili. Oh, putting chili on a taco. I mean, I'll put anything on a taco.
That's
honestly,
interesting.
Yeah.
I love tacos. Tacos are the universal food. I love them. Like, I grew up in a poor neighborhood in Tampa where there's a lot of Hispanic influence. So I just grew up eating tacos, and I just don't put lettuce on tacos.
Last question from Adam Patrick Murphy in the chat. He asks, is a hot dog a taco?
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. If you're going to argue anything like that, I will give you that one.
Mike, is a hot dog a taco?
Is a hot dog a sandwich? Is the traditional question. Is a hot dog a taco? No, it's got to have a tortilla to make it a taco.
I don't know. No, I've had oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. It's the shape, you know.
It's funny. When I discovered that my girlfriend thinks of tacos as American tacos, like the gringo traditional
Taco Bell
tacos.
Taco Bell.
Yeah, and I'm
Which
like,
have their
"All right,
time
I'll
and
show you."
place too. Which have their time and place too.
Yeah, so I'm like, after I learned that, I'm like, all right, I got dinner tomorrow night. I'll show you real American tacos. And then I just made hot dogs.
Good one. All right, we're gonna end it there. We do have a $5 super chat from VC Jester. Thank you so much. Said shout out to Gordon. Yes, shout out to Gordon. We all miss him. Best wishes and fast recovery. Hopefully he will be back at some point. And once again, I'm just keeping his chair warm. But yeah, we should get out of here. I'm hungry. My stomach is literally grumbling.
American tacos? Yes, let's go.
Do we have a good taco place close to here? Oh yeah, we do. Okay. Anyway, check back next week for your dose of tech topics and food talk, obviously, because that's what we like to talk around about here. For audio listeners, please subscribe over on Spotify, iTunes, Pocket Casts, whatever. Leave a review if you can, please. I've been checking. We haven't been getting reviews, so that means every time you do review, Brad gets another taco. We want Brad to get more tacos, so please leave.
I get grumpy without tacos.
Yeah, he gets grumpy. What else does Gordon say? I can't remember. So I'm just gonna say thank you for everyone for joining. Thank you, Brad Charkis.
Adios, y'all.
Thank you, Mike Kreider. We will definitely have you on again.
Alrighty, had a lot of fun.
Be sure to read Mike Kreider's stuff over on PCWorld. And Willis Lai is going to take us out of here.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Someone on the chat Davina just mentioned it is Taco Tuesday. So go get a taco.
Maybe that's why we always do the show on Tuesdays.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.